Hello, Bill Molyneux here for Bill's History World, and today we are at Fort Frederick State Park in Big Pool, Maryland. And we've done many videos at Fort Frederick, but today we will not be focusing on the French Indian War or timeline. Today we are focusing on the little known fact of the Civilian Conservation Corps. And we have some Conservation Corps flags here. So today we're going to learn a bit about the Conservation Corps. It was, I'm going to let the park rangers tell you about the Conservation Corps. Now I have one other video on the Conservation Corps for Newtown Battlefield, and that is tied in to this also. So anyhow, I hope you'll watch this as we visit these different buildings, what the CCC did to help reconstruct and rebuild Fort Frederick. All right. I'm sure you're going to find this video very, very enlightening. If you don't know anything about the CCC, this is the video for you to watch. Well, I am here with Park Ranger Robert Ambrose. And Robert, can you tell me what's going on here at Fort Frederick this weekend?
Yeah, so this weekend is our Civilian Conservation Corps weekend, where we commemorate what happened here at Fort Frederick from 1934 to 1936, when the Civilian Conservation Corps established Camp SP number 1 with Company 1353 here at Fort Frederick. And their main job was to restore the fort walls. They did archaeology, and they created the footprint of the park we see today. So almost all the log structures in the park, the roadways, our picnic area was all created by the Civilian Conservation Corps during that time. So today we're telling a little bit about the life of what it was like to be in the CCC and the different things that they did. So we have hands-on activities that include archaeology, stonemasonry, blacksmithing, firefighting, and we've been doing some food stuff and showing people kind of what barracks life was like and just sort of the general day of the CCC. So we want people to experience that because we are closing in on, it's 90 years since the program started. So we're getting close in 100 years, and we want people to know more about this very important part of our history during the Great Depression, when Franklin Roosevelt created the Civilian Conservation Corps.
All right, well, thank you very much. And I'm going to hit all of those different spots you've told me about and meet all your different volunteers and park rangers.
Great.
Well, this is one of the many buildings here at Fort Frederick that the Conservation Corps had. And I see Gerald, the historian, is here. Gerald, can you tell me about this building a bit?
Yes, this is a CCC camp building. During the mid-1930s, this building served as a workshop or tool shed for the Fort Frederick Civilian Conservation Corps camp. Sometime after the camp was abandoned, the building was donated to a nearby Methodist church and moved off park lands. In 2004, the unique structure was returned to the park for future restoration through the efforts of the Friends of Fort Frederick State Park Incorporated. This is one of a number of original CCC camp buildings that exist throughout the country. Because these structures were intended to be temporary in nature, those that remain are important reminders of our history. Restoration donations are appreciated and can be sent to the Friends of Fort Frederick State Park Incorporated, 11115 Fort Frederick Road, Big Pool, Maryland, zip code 21711.
Well, thank you, Gerald. I'm looking for Park Ranger Robert Ambrose next. Is there anything else you'd like to mention? I know that you had a relative that actually was a doctor for the Conservation Corps.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to close out?
I'd like to dedicate this day to my grandfather, Dr. David Earl Harris, who was a CCC camp doctor from 1933 to 1942, and he was also a World War I veteran.
Very good. And thank you for all you do. I mean, you help out at so many historic sites, and I've actually interviewed you in French Indian War clothing. in previous historic sites. So you are everywhere, portraying multi time periods, and thank you for everything.
Thank you very much, Bill.
All right, Dan, what's going on at Fort Frederick today?
Well, today we are having our second annual CCC, Civilian Conservation Corp camp here at Fort Frederick. So we're recreating Company 1353, which is the company that came here and built this as SP1, State Park 1 in Maryland. And what they did is they reconstructed the fort and then built the park, all the roads, the picnic pavilion, all that. So what we're doing today is we have living history going on here in the barracks, where we have a bunch of the boys. We're actually camping a few nights. We have the blacksmith shop open, so they're actually going to be over there doing the blacksmith thing. We'll have a cook cooking our meals and doing that impression. We have inside the fort, we have a few of our guys that are actually interpreting how to stack the stones and the mortar and things, how they're rebuilding the wall. And then they actually have a little pit the kids can dig in and do an archaeology, because the boys were actually digging inside the fort trying to do minor archaeology.
Wow. Well, I'm hoping to get a lot of video today and expand this story and put it on YouTube. And is there anything special you want me to make sure I get on the internet that I might miss?
Nothing, but just mainly, like I said, all the little vignettes we got going around here. There's a lot of cool things to see.
All right. I will try to do my best to show people that can't get here all the hard work you're doing to keep history alive here at Fort Frederick. Thank you for your time, Dan.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. We have Ranger Ratman Dan. Tell us what building we're at.
So this here is our CCC camp building, and it was, in the time period, it was a shop or workshop that the Seas boys had. It's our only surviving camp building, because as you can tell, with just the tar paper and furring strips, these were portable buildings. They were not meant to last. And so all the barracks and everything were made like this, and then they were quickly either disassembled, shipped by train to another site, or eventually just taken apart and destroyed. So this actually surviving is great. It's an awesome thing. That the only reason it's here is because it was preserved off-site for years at a Methodist church, and then in 2004 came back to the park here, so we're very thankful for. So what we're doing today is we're reinterpreting this as our barracks building.
Well, can we go in?
Yes.
All right, we're inside, and can you tell me about this barracks room?
Yes, so what we're doing here is we're simulating a portion of what the barracks would have looked like. So there would have been 4 large barracks here at the camp that would have about 120 to 130 feet long. And you'd have about 50 men, because you have 200 boys. They are called boys in the interior. So there's about 200 boys that are in each camp. And so they would have their bunks. Of course, we would have a middle row. There'd be bunks on each side, but this is a smaller building. But what you see today is we've got this nice and full of several bunks, and what you'll see is an actual one real metal folding cot from the period, and then the rest are the standard wooden canvas cots that the boys were using when they came out of the tent camps and brought them into the barracks, and then they slowly, as they acquired new metal folding cots, they started to replace. But it was a cot of some sort with a mattress, and they were issued 2 wool blankets with their sheets and the comforter. This is a great find. They've started reproducing recently, the actual CCC comforter. And the reason this comes out is the shortage of wool, so it's an all cotton product that's made. That's a really cool thing to have. But otherwise, so when the boys actually get to the barracks, they get issued a foot locker, and depending, it's because in the Siege you'll see a lot of mix of military and civilian stuff, civilian contract. So with the foot lockers, that's why you're going to see like these first 2 are a military style, and then a few of the other ones here are a civilian trunk.
Now, when you say boys, can you tell, my viewers may not know the Conservation Corp, what are their ages?
So the boys are 18 to 25, and they're allowed to enroll for 6 months. And at the end of that, you can re-enroll, kind of like a re-enlistment, up to 2 years. And while they're here, they have advancement opportunity. So if you want to become more than that, you can become an assistant leader, you can become a leader. So you'll see them wearing those stripes that look military in a way. But with that, you can actually take those jobs if you want to move up, and you could be like a barracks leader, or you could be a cook working over the mess hall and the blacksmith shop, things like that. So you could actually earn badges and move up.
All right. Well, it does look like a military camp. Thank you. And how do they keep this room warm?
So you see here, they always had a nice good wood stove or coal burning stove. And what they would have is normally, this pipe would actually maybe go down horizontally for a way before it goes out, just to give more ways to radiate heat in the building.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan, the Rat Man. You have your own famous YouTube and Facebook videos yourself, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Camp is run by the Army, and the Army is all about how to properly stay organized, stay fit, and you always start with morning formation. And what you're going to notice this morning different is if we were actually military, of course, military would be saluting the flag as it's going up the pole. But being as we are civilian, we're going to be doing just like everybody else. We're going to be taking our hats and putting our hat in our hand over our heart to salute the flag.
I didn't bring my hat.
That's okay if you don't have a hat. I'm just telling you that's what we're doing.
Flag.
So what you do if you don't have a hat, you're just putting your right hand over your heart. Company, heart salute. Ready? Two. All right, so there is one difference if you guys look at this flag. It's hard to see, but if you're looking at our stars, there are only 48 stars on our flag because this is the 1930s, where we're up to 1934 to 1937 when the boys are here rebuilding the fort. And they're building the park, reconstructing the fort and those things. But from 1912 all the way until 1959, there's only 48 states in the Union. But all 48 states, plus all of our American territories, did have Civilian Conservation Corp camps, doing projects all around the nation, building everything like this: state parks, national parks, recreation areas, all the great things that we get to enjoy today is all due to these boys over 9 years, about 3 million boys and 3,000 camps over 9 years, doing a lot of great work. So we thank you guys for coming out. There's gonna be a lot of cool stuff to see today. We've got laundry, we've got a barracks here if you guys want to see how the boys lived in the Army barracks. The blacksmith shop's gonna start doing stuff here in a little while, so you guys will want to see that. And then inside the fort, you guys can do archaeology, a little hands-on, and even show how to stack the blocks, or the stone, how they're reconstructing the fort, so you guys can do hands-on things like that. So lots of great stuff to see. Thank you very much.
I'm with Troy Heck, and he's going to show us where the actual camp was. Troy, you want to take me through?
Sure, let's walk down here.
All right.
So out in the trees down here you had the C's camp, and that's where the barracks, the showers, the mess hall, everything, the recreation hall, all that was down here in the trees, and the foundations and everything are still there. But what you're what you see now are just trees. It's all grown up and covered everything up, but it's there. You can walk down in there and find it.
So you can find like the foundation?
The foundations are there, so they're concrete foundations, and what they think is the latrines. There's pits that are still there, that can be seen as well. But the showers down there, the recreation hall, all that's down in the trees. And of course down in the field you had the baseball diamond where the boys would play baseball in their free time.
Well, that's cool. Any sign of how the diamond was set up?
I'm not real sure about that. I haven't walked down there to check it out, but I believe the backstop was more towards the railroad tracks in the trees down there, and the second base was more towards us.
All right.
So
well, thank you. I'm going to be doing videos all day. Thank you for all your service here to help educate people about history.
I'm glad you're here, Bill.
All right. Well, I'm here with Mr. Gerald, another interpreter. Gerald, what are we doing here?
My name is Gerald Earl Harris, and I'm doing this because of my grandfather was in the CCC from 1934 to 1942 to help support our family during the Great Depression.
And it looks like we're at a medical table?
Yes, my grandfather was a camp doctor for the CCC from 1933 to 1942.
Wow. And so I gather there was injuries while they were working on different projects here?
Yes, I have copies of all his camp doctor reports from the National Archives.
Wow. And what was in this doctor bag, I guess? Can I get some close-ups of this?
Sure can. Medical first aid.
Okay.
Supplies.
So you have your gauze, bandages,
Yep.
pretty much the same stuff you'd have nowadays, huh?
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, how well were the doctor at the camp? Were they like a nurse level training, or were they an actual doctor, or first aid training?
Well, my grandfather was a general practitioner. He went to medical school, or attended medical school at Northwestern University School of Medicine in Evanston, Illinois. And he was doing his residency at the University of Chicago Women's Hospital when the Great Depression occurred. He brought my family back to his home state of Idaho, and he practiced medicine with the CCC.
All right, and I guess one last question: what camp did he work at?
He worked at various camps in Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, and I have postcards of all the camps he sent my grandmother, mother, and aunt that he attended.
Wow. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for all you're doing here to help educate people about history and Fort Frederick and their tie to the Conservation Corp. Thank you, Gerald. I'm with Park Ranger Miss Michelle. Did I get that right? Mm-hmm. All right, and she has a setup here of the Conservation Corps, and I'm going to let her tell us what it is.
So I am over here handing out pamphlets to people. We got our Civilian Conservation Corps set up. We have a couple tables. We have a brick that my boss put out. He found this at, I forget what park, but a park he was working at. They took down a CCC building, and this was one of the bricks he saved. We have some photographs. We have our list of daily events. We have a handout, as you can see. Just a handbook.
Is that like an original one?
No, this is actually a reprint.
A reprint, okay.
Not originally. Anyone can come by and leaf through it, but it's pretty cool.
All right.
We sell these in the store, but these are handkerchiefs.
Okay.
We have this is I think part of our park.
All right.
Original hats. I believe this is my boss's. The hat they would have worn in the winter. A picture of one of the statues to the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Oh my gosh, what are these buckets?
Oh yeah, these buckets. Let's see if I can remember what they're all for. So this one's a mop bucket. So it's just a regular bucket, and this one is one of the ones they use for masonry. So they would have been over in the fort using these to put mortar in to restore the fort walls.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So were these buckets found here at Fort Frederick?
I believe they were.
Very cool.
Yep.
And what's your favorite thing here on your display tables that you have? Is there something that stands out?
I think the hats are pretty cool.
The hats are pretty cool.
That's kind of what I think. I also really like these. We also sell these in our store, but these little.
Very cool.
This was our company that was here in during the 1930s.
Okay.
This is their specific number. I think that's pretty cool.
All right, and you do have the most incredible store right back there that carries all kinds of awesome stuff, including French Indian War board games. So, where should I head to next? Should I go over to the museum?
If you would like, we have the museum. We also have the fort.
All right.
Feel free to explore.
Well, I guess I'll head over to the museum and visit there. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all you're doing to help teach people about history.
Absolutely.
Well, this is the Conservation Corp Museum, and it's open. Now, I have made a previous video of the Conservation Corp Museum with Dan, the Ratman Park Ranger. But you know, we're gonna zap the room again. In the previous video, the sign for Fort Frederick, this actually was inside the fort by the Governor's Mansions Foundation, I was told. All right, they have a lot of interesting artifacts that were found while they were doing the archaeology work with the Conservation Corp. Hinges. We have a musket parts, a frizzen, pan. That's a bayonet lug right there. Something interesting that is in my other video, Dan explained that the blacksmith here at the park, they made all the hinges, locks. So these were made in the 1930s. So they're just about coming up to being 100 years old. All right, let's check a couple of the other displays. Also, this building was built by the Seas. And if you remember my video of Newtown, New York, Elmira, Newtown Battlefield, that big lodge was built by the Conservation Corps unit there, an African American unit, that they built a large fireplace like this also, with the same style, rafters, beams, and lodge style. So here in the museum, a lot of neat photographs, and we're trying to get a close-up of what the fort looked like. As you see, it had an orchard, there was no buildings, pretty rough shape, and the walls are knocked down. All right, so when you come to Fort Frederick, Robert Ambrose and his entire park ranger team, Patrick, Dan the Rat Man, Chris, and several others, besides visiting the fort, you got to take time to visit the Conservation Corps Museum. All right, let's go visit the fort. And in this video, we're not going to be doing French Indian War history. We will be doing how the walls were rebuilt by the Conservation Corps boys. Well, I'm here with Patrick, and he's going to explain how the Conservation Corps boys fixed these walls. And Patrick, take it away from here.
So in the 1930s, 1934 to 1937, the Civilian Conservation Corps group of young men, mostly untrained, unskilled, came here to Fort Frederick and did a number of things, most notably for us inside the fort, the reconstruction of the wall, which is one of our main interpretive tools here. And they did this using a very cheap material known as Portland concrete. So when you're in the fort today and you look around, you can see the wall in two capacities, both its original 18-foot height, 3-foot thickness, but if you follow the color of the mortar as you look around the fort, you'll notice there is a darker, somewhere between gray, black, and brown, and then a slightly lighter creamish to white mortar color. And what you're seeing is the eras of construction. Original mortar from the 1750s is the lime-based mortar. It's much brighter. And then in the 1930s, the modern government material, Portland concrete style, was used.
So that's why it's got a darker band, like 4 feet at the top.
Yes, and if you look around the fort, Bill, if you want to do a quick pan around, you can see around the entire fort In fact, your viewers will look at the back wall best with the sun shining on it. You can see dramatic color differentials between the tops and the bottom of the wall. You'll notice one section of the wall has a huge top to bottom rectangular sort of shape, and that entire section of the wall was gone at one point. So you can see how in the 1930s the material used to reconstruct the wall was slightly different, and it ages and differently. So what these men did was a very simple stack stone method. Behind us here I have an example of one of the just very simple rudimentary wooden forms they would use. Essentially this is a guide. These men would build a stone, so in my display, essentially no wider than this and no taller than this line. And you can see when you look around the fort, it tracks with some of the consistent lines of mortar. The way the fort was built initially was also the way it was restored. They would build up to a point, level off that stone, build up to a point, and level off that stone. So today, visitors of the fort will be able to make a mixture of sand, concrete, and water. We can stack stones. You can get your hands dirty, and you can temporarily rebuild a part of the wall here.
Wow, I got to ask you a couple questions. Sure. Since these boys were between 18 and 25, how did they know how to do this? Did you have someone come in and help them?
Yes, they're being trained by guys like I'm portraying today, one of the either local experienced men or one of the veterans out of the Army, because the Army does administer the Civilian Conservation Corps, so you do have sort of an on-the-job training experience. There is no way that I can even pretend to look young wearing these clothes, even fully shaved anymore, so I sort of am leaning into the training aspect of this. To my left is my colleague in the 1930s and both in the 21st century here, Chris, who very much looks the age. And so the portrayal we're doing today is I'm kind of showing him how we did archaeology, how we did masonry inside the fort. So these men were trained by professionals, local experienced men within the Army.
And how long did it take them, and how many were there working on this wall to get this back to how it looks now?
So I'm going to use my favorite historian's answer. I don't know. I don't actually know the number of individuals that were here. Camp 1353, I believe, was several hundred individuals, but if you caught up with Ratman Dan Ratcliffe, I'm sure he's going to have a much more accurate number. But at the very least, it was dozens of young men, and at least probably a dozen or so trainers, guides, teachers of the sort. The story of Fort Frederick's CCC existence is growing rapidly right now as we focus on the research. So I imagine if Dan doesn't know it right now, he's going to know it very, very soon for us.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we walked over to where Pat was talking about this wall. It actually had the previous owners, a private person actually owned the fort for a while. And he used this as a farm, and he kept livestock, an apple orchard, and this was a hole he made through the fort, and you can see the line there and the line there. So the conservation boys, they had to rebuild this whole section. So you can actually see this rectangle where the hole was built, or the hole was made, and they had to fill it in to make it a complete wall again for the fort. Well, I'm here with Mr. Chris. He's one of the many park rangers. You may recognize him from being in several of my other videos, including the How to Build a Fire in 1750. But today he portrays, and take it away, Chris. What are you doing today?
Well, hey Bill, I'm glad to be back on another video. Today I'm representing one of the guys that would have been here with the Civilian Conservation Corps. Today I'm representing one of the uniforms they could wear. I have my nice long sleeve greenish wool shirt. I have my nice sturdy denim pants, my leather boots, and I also have my my denim hat here. Nice round hat, keeps the sun off of me. And I am holding this shovel here because I'm representing a guy who's been sent out to dig up a lot, because they did a lot of archaeology here at the fort. The CCC boys did. So I'm heading off to work, getting ready to go dig up some awesome artifacts, such as all the pottery and other artifacts they found within the fort. And I hope that you guys are able to come out and see us at the fort sometime soon.
Wow, can I ask a couple questions?
Right
you look
ahead.
like you're wearing a military uniform, but you're not in the military, right?
I am not. However, the Civilian Conservation Corps was heavily based off of military fashion. A lot of this is World War I surplus uniforms and around in the 30s, and so they built it entirely based off of military fashion. So I'm wearing nice proper uniform. If I wasn't wearing this shirt, I could have a nice white t-shirt on. However, I wanted to look good today, so I wore my green shirt.
Well, very good, and thank you for all you do for helping to teach history here at Fort Frederick, and I guess that's it. Anything else you want to close out with?
Not really anything in particular. I just hope to see as many of you as I can here at the fort. We love having visitors, and I can tell you about our 267 years of history.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, sir. Okay, Ian, I have you on video. What are you up to?
Right now we're just making a coal rake for the shop. Since the shop has not been fired up in many years and we're missing a couple tools, so I'm just trying to make everything the shop is going to need going forward.
Well, what would they make here when it was the Conservation Corps?
So Conservation Corps wise, they're going to be making, like on the door right behind you, they're making strap hinges and probably doing repair and possibly making certain tools that they either broke or couldn't get a hold of. But mainly they're making architectural type stuff, decorative pieces that are going on the buildings that they're making and restoring.
Very good. Now, if that metal gets too hot, will it actually melt right down into a liquid form?
It doesn't really it doesn't melt like a candle or softer metals like lead. It does begin to melt, but it also begins to oxidize rapidly from the oxygen in the fire, and it burns kind of like a sparkler at the same time. So if you overheat a piece and you pull it out, it'll have this odd cratered texture with sort of drips coming off of it a little bit, and it also weakens the material quite a bit. So usually in blacksmithing it's called burning a piece, and when you burn something you usually want to cut off anywhere that's burnt and start over, because it's not going to have the strength that you want anymore.
Okay. Okay. I will. Alright, I'll grab it. Is it his red, or is it the same sweatshirt that he had? Is it a jacket or sweatshirt?
Well, that should be pretty good.
Okay.
It's super simple, but that's going to be our pull rake for the time being.
Okay, we'll make one way or another. We'll get it.
Really cool.
Now we can pull
Now, how long have you been a blacksmith, sir?
Technically something like 10 years, but I'd say where I consider myself a blacksmith, maybe 4 or 5.
Well, I remember being at your parents' house and you were like knee high. Ugh,
Yeah.
I'm old. Well, thank you for your time, sir.
Yep.
And thank you for all you do to help teach people about historic sites and history and blacksmithing.
Yep.
So, Ian, what else were they making here?
So they're largely doing, like on that door right behind you.
All
You
right.
see those strap hinges there, and probably the handle on it too. That's the sort of thing they were making. We believe that's original to this shop from the period.
Wow. Now, how long would it take a blacksmith to make something like this? Is this an hour project or 20 minutes?
It all depends on how experienced you are. I'd say those are decently well made. Probably an hour a piece, maybe 2 hours a piece.
Wow. And I guess the CCC boys that came here, how did they learn, how to become blacksmiths?
Well, there's also, they were offering classes teaching how to do it here. So whether they initially started with someone who was local and more experienced, he might have taught some people and they learned and they started teaching amongst themselves. And so then you build, as long as you keep someone here at all times who's pretty good with it, then they can always teach new people as people come and go and get them up to speed.
Very
But
good.
it does take a long time to learn, I'd say.
And we have a volunteer team of a father and son here with Mark. And it's really cool. The two of you are here helping out at Fort Frederick with the Conservation Corp programs. So thank you both for what you do. And Mark, I know you do an awful lot for historic sites, and thank you. And we're going to go on and find out what the CCC boys had for lunch and dinner. We are now with Dan, the Ratman Park Ranger, and he is the cook. And Dan, can you tell me what, I mean, you had to feed these fellas breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What did they eat?
Right, so of course I have an outdoor kitchen today, which would not be normal. The boys would actually be going to a mess hall, but they are feeding them 3 hot meals a day, especially in a place where your work camp is close to your work site, is next to your camp, so they're able to come back and get hot meals. In the morning, it's a lot of the standard eggs, biscuit, toast, all those things. Lunch, a common staple, what we're doing today is beans and franks, or now we call them like beanie weenies, but beans and franks. So I'm heating up the hot dogs, I'll cut them up, put the beans in, and a lot of bread and milk, lemonade. Coffee is available at every meal, and then sodas, which they would actually be purchasing in the canteen, the camp exchange. But a lot of great classic sodas, like this one here is called Spiffy.
Now, where in the world did you find a Spiffy soda?
So this was bought, one of our guys went down to Frederick, Maryland. There's I don't know the name of the shop, but there's like a shop that sells old time sodas. So you can find that. If not, you can go to places like a Cracker Barrel and usually find a lot of the old school different sodas like that.
So for dinner, was it frank and beans again?
Dinner would be something different. It would be a lot of good things like maybe ham, things like that. Tonight we're actually going to be doing a beef stew, so that's a common thing. They're doing a lot of big stews and things because it's things that the boys who are learning from the Army how to make in mass. So it's always easy to make a big pot meals and stuff and feed a lot of the boys. And then of course, like I said, there's sandwiches. So there's always bread, bologna cheese, peanut butter and jelly are available all the time.
And how did they get the food? Did it come from the Army? Did it come from the local grocery store?
The Army's trucking all that in. What we had here, like at our camp, the military road went around straight back to the kitchen, where they had the ice box and the kitchen and all that stuff. But the Army's trucking all of it in through the quartermaster.
Wow, amazing. All this work by the Conservation Corps. I'm hoping these videos will help bring light to what the Civilian Conservation Corps did, both at this site and my videos at Newtown Battlefield in Elmira, New York, where that Conservation Corps was an all-black unit. Oh, and they built a giant lodge. And Dan, you were in my other video with the museum, and I did hit that a little bit today. Is there anything you'd like to mention about that museum?
The current museum, we're going to be changing that soon, but currently it's just got a lot of great pictures and stuff of the boys while they're working on the fort, showing how they're reconstructing the walls and when they dug out and found the foundations and stuff. So there's a lot of good pictures and stuff. But what we're slowly going to do is move a lot of that hopefully into our current camp building, which we showed earlier. And that's going to become the museum. We want to put some of the displays and pictures, but also slices of life so you can walk in and see a fully made bunk and maybe a piece of the mess hall. And even we're going to have we have a magazine rack in there with periodicals and books and things, kind of showing slices of their life.
All right, well, this is going to be, I'm going to find Robert Ambrose, the head park ranger, and interview him last. But is there anything you'd like to close out in your section here?
I just want to say I'm thankful for everybody that comes out, all our volunteers and reenactors do this. We couldn't do it without them, and this is a really good time, so appreciate all of them.
All right, well, thank you for your time and all you do to help promote history and keep history alive.
Thank you.
All right, Dan, what are we doing here?
So what we're demonstrating here is an important thing, that all the CCC boys were involved in firefighting. Anywhere it was going to happen, they could be called out. And a common way they would do it is what they call the Indian pumps, the cans for spraying out small fires that they can strap on their back. So we're just doing a quick little demo here.
Well, I see there's little fires have sprouted up.
Yeah, so we've got Troy and Drew here that are going to demonstrate.
All right.
As we
Well, we're going to move around the side. I see, what, 4 or 5 flames here. This looks bad.
So let's see how good they are. See if I can knock them down. Oh, there's one. There's 2.
Who's got better aim?
There's 3.
So what's wrong with Troy?
There's no pressure here. The water.
Looks like Drew wins the stuffed bear.
All right. So I'd like to get a close-up. Drew, would you mind showing me exactly, is this like a 1930s firefighter apparatus? So
yeah, they called them Indian cans. Yeah, it's just got inside. There's water on this side.
Okay.
Divider and another thing of water right here.
Okay.
So it would use gravity to push out here. So you're pumping, but it's not really.
Okay. And how much weight is that? I mean, water weighs quite a bit.
Yeah, this is about 25 to 30 pounds on my back right now.
When it's full, it's got to be that.
Okay.
And I'm feeling every bit of it.
And I see Troy already ditched his.
Right.
All right, and I'm happy to say you guys put out the fire, and I am learning so much about the Civilian Conservation Corps and these packs. They're pretty much, are they still sort of the same things that they're using now?
Yeah. This is actually, you can still buy these today, and they are used for. It's a great thing for like brush fires and such.
All right, Ranger Rat. Anything else you'd like to close this segment out with?
No, I just want to mention that it's a part that gets forgotten a lot is that firefighting is important. It's not, in a lot of the camps, not their main job, but anything that's going to break out in the area, they are going to be called out to do it.
Well, thank you, Drew and Troy, to help out with this video segment. And it's amazing how much I have learned today about the Conservation Corps. Well, Robert, I have amazed of everything I learned today. I learned stuff from blacksmithing, archaeology, how the walls were reconstructed. Can you end out my video?
Well, I'd just like to thank you, Bill, for coming out today and filming this event to help give people a better idea of what's going on here at Fort Frederick in terms of programming and also what the Civilian Conservation Corps did here. And I really appreciate you coming out and doing this. We're sad that Goober wasn't here, but we appreciate that.
Goober is in, he's 1,000 miles away with park rangers in another state.
I appreciate that he's getting out and about.
Now I need to ask, I met so many wonderful historians and park rangers. Would you mind, no last names, but can you give credit to the people that are here to help you teach history?
Sure. We'll start with the staff. We have Patrick and Chris and Michelle. We have Dan and Drew. They're staff members here. We have volunteers that include Troy and Ian and Mark, as well as Sterling and Bill Molyneux was here.
And don't forget Gerald.
Oh yes, and good old Jerry. I would be beside myself if I didn't mention Jerry. Yes, Jerry is one of our fine volunteers, and we love him.
Well, I think we hit everybody, and if we did miss someone, I apologize. I wanted to make sure we gave credit to all the wonderful people helping you here.
Yes, thank you very much for coming out and helping us, and see you next time.
And I hope you'll like this video.